You have a beautiful debut out right now. I'm
Oh,
curious, going back though, as a singer-songwriter, is there a genre that you think that you fall into, or do you not try to box yourself in that way?
yeah, that's actually the right answer there, I would say, because I mean I'm a huge fan of R&B and soul. I mean, my favorite band is probably something that a lot of people don't know. They're called the Funk Brothers, and the Funk Brothers used to be the house band from Motown. And these guys, if you actually listen to all the tracks they played on and everything they did, I mean, thousands of that. It's kind of like there was an old group of guys in LA called the Wrecking Crew too, and they played on thousands and thousands of tracks. I think actually the bass player, bless her, I think she's about 90 now. She's still playing on tracks. But
Wow.
I'm a huge R&B soul fan, but my music's definitely a lot more sort of, I guess, sort of pop soul, I guess you want to call it. But I didn't really fall into any genre at all. I love so much different. I mean, I guess yeah. Basically, my mum also put me into that. She play every type of music, anything from classical to this to that to anything. So that's sort of where I fell into that. And I can't sort of say pigeonhole myself and say, well, that's exactly what I am and that's exactly what I sound like. So for me, my hope is that whatever I put out and whatever I play, it's enough for people to say I like that. So that's all right with me.
Well, this self-titled debut was recorded at Abbey Road Studios. What did that mean to you?
That was the bomb. I mean, we were there. You sort of walk in there. Unfortunately, sort of Abbey Road a few years ago, I think they got to a point where they were having a few financial problems, so they sort of opened the doors. And most of the people that come there now are from around the world, and not basically from London, but they basically want to be able
Right.
to have Abbey Road on the back of their album.
Right.
Uh, join the club, yeah. But we recorded there in Metropolis, which is kind of a famous studio too in Chiswick in West London, and Core in West London also. They've been around for years. Metropolis has been around. But my producer, Chris Potter, he was working in Metropolis for about 5 years as a sort of in-house producer and engineer for a long time. But he's got such a good pedigree, that fella though. So if you go through his resume, it's like madness. I mean, he started working with the Stones when he was 24 and did 3, 4 albums with them. Then McCartney, then he did all the stuff for the Verve and Richard Ashcroft, and he's just a really nice guy. So I can't. So going into Abbey Road, yeah. To answer your question, I'll get there. Sorry, but going to Abbey Road, it did feel great, and it's a lovely studio to work in too. But yeah, it's got a lot of history to it that you can't help but feel great about when you're in there.
There's a deep emotional aspect to this album. Was there something, a moment in your life maybe that sort of kicked off this more introspective path for
Well,
you?
yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, I was making short films a little while ago, up to a little while ago, and I left music aside for quite because when I was about 18, I got signed to Warner Chappell to write songs and stuff like that. Although they did drop me off for about 6 months and told me good luck. Hasta la vista, have a good life. We like your music, but it's nothing for us. I've never heard a positive, negative in such a way, but it was all right for me. I ended up making some movies, and I was making a movie called Eli, and it was about a fella that had a lot of history, but I know that everybody's got a story to tell, and everyone's got some sort of deep emotional situation they've gone through in life. And the problem is, we don't spend too much time ever asking anybody. We just wonder why they're grumpy or nasty or whatever mood they're in. And at one point, I sold door to door, and it taught me a really big lesson selling door to door. I was selling these old crappy sort of knife sets door to door, and most people didn't want them, but I didn't know what was going on behind that door before I knocked on the door. Maybe they were a bit rude to me. Maybe their dog wasn't well, or this didn't happen, or that didn't happen. And a lot of that came into this album when I decided to write music again.
Mm,
That we have all these sort of situations, particularly when it comes to love and relationships, that we're hoping for. And I remember a long time ago, I had an uncle of mine say to me that it's not always about the love, son. You've got to like them. And he said the love can be there forever, but if you don't like them, you can, it's like you ask a married couple, how can you love and hate somebody in the exact same time, the exact same day? So, and a lot of the albums about the fact that you know you spend a lot of your life fighting for what you think is right, and there's always somebody in the way to tell you that your scenario and your situation of what's right isn't right.
Hmm.
So it kind of it has a certain amount of a lot of paradox there, but at the same time, you know, I think you know every album's got some sort of part of love to it or something. We're all searching for that, but I always kind of figured at one point, Jamie, that you know. Uh, I think if it had been actually achieved, then to how to describe, say, something like love, you'd say, well, listen to that song, watch that movie, watch that one television show, watch that, or listen to that on the radio, and you have got the answer. So obviously, nobody's really got the answer. That's why they keep writing songs about it.
What is your songwriting process then? Do you need to have a lyric before you, or a beat before you can start crafting one over the other?
Well, you know, I tried that a few times. You know, that's how Elton John does all his things. He gets the lyrics first and he writes the music to it afterwards. I've done that a few times, but normally it's usually a kernel of something that you feel, or maybe a line or something, or you come up with something, or you've heard something somewhere, and that's how it goes. But normally I write the music first, and the rest of it comes afterwards. Hopefully, it comes afterwards. And we're actually putting we've actually put down the basis for 15 new tracks also.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, I want to put a lot sort of in, as so to speak, in the can there, because we want to concentrate a little bit more on touring in the next year or so. Potter's a little bit under the weather at the moment, but we go back in the studio in June, so I'm kind of excited about that.
You did tell me how hands-on Chris was when it came to the production side of the music you
Mm,
make, but how
yeah.
hands are you when it comes to the
Well,
production side?
you want to know? The one thing I learned from being in studios over the years is to learn how to keep my mouth shut and my ears open. And a lot of guys come in and have their mouth flailing all over the place. There's verbal diarrhea here, verbal diarrhea there, but they don't spend any time listening to what the person is. And when I've got somebody in front of me that's got a career of 40 years and he's a super talented guy and he's extremely humble as a person, has no like enormously ego saying you should do it this way. I just sat back and basically listened to everything he had to say and what he put into what was going on. Once in a while, I put my foot in here and there and say, well, I really don't want to do that. But I think that's the job of a great producer. And he also on the album, it'll say produced and arranged by him, which is an old sort of fashioned thing that you'd see on albums back in the day, you know, from Frank Sinatra or something. They had
Right.
no I'm a big music aficionado, so like Nelson Riddle was one of his. I would say, you know, produced and arranged by Nelson Riddle or whatever like that. And that's what Chris did. He looked at my music and he arranged a lot of it. It was still the same music, the same songs. But I think this time around I might be a little bit more verbal from time to
Okay,
time. But at the same time, I think that's the job of working with a producer for him to look at your
sure.
music and see or maybe hear things that you didn't hear. And that's what I believe makes a better song, or hopefully makes a better song.
Well, my personal favorite tracks are A Place in the Sun, You Belong to Me, Stay by My Side. Do you have ones that hold a special place in your heart? Certainly, they're all your children.
Yeah, I would say, and it's been around for a while. I wrote that song probably about 10 years ago. Some of the songs on the new record, I've got some songs in there I wrote when I was 14 and 15. So
Wow.
yeah, we dug them out of the treasure trove. But I would probably say still my favorite song is The Waiting Game. Because it has a line in it that I always love saying, uh, if I can remember my own music, that would be great. But but it's about uh, there isn't a man there's not a man half as who wants you half as mad as much as me. There's no man in the world that wants you as half as mad as me, and that
Mm.
was always something important to me. And I think that's when it comes to love and relationships and attention and affection, and you've got to, you know, you've got to go all the way. You've got to have that obsessiveness and possessiveness and all that feeling that you can't live without that person. And I think it's a hell of a great feeling when you do get it.
I mean, you're talking to a woman, so we
Mm.
know feelings.
Well, that's the thing these days. I was talking to a fella the other day, and he said to me, it's all great that we want to make sure we get the facts these days, but just don't forget about the feelings.
Well said.
Yeah.
Then is there an emotion or maybe a message that you hope lingers with people that explore this album?
Yeah, and a little well. I mean, I think a lot of times we just spend far too much time waiting for things to happen. And we want to do things, we want to get better. But on the album, there's a lot of sort of want on there, And there was an old line
Mm.
my grandfather said to me, and he
His
said to me,
baby.
yeah, he said two great things he said to me before he passed away, because he sort of looked after me after my dad passed when I was young. And he said to me, I was 9 at the time, and I remember he stopped in the middle of the street. We were walking his dog, and he stopped. He said, I'm going to tell you two things, boy, and don't you forget them. He said, number one is don't ever grow old. And he said, number two is don't wait for anything because it's not coming. I've lived that way. I didn't realize that till later on in life. I remembered it. I never forgot those lines, but I didn't realize it as I started to do other things in life and tried to get things going. And it's one, and it's kind of in the DNA for everybody, but we just don't ever. A lot of times, don't do anything about it. That's why
Sure.
a lot of people really there's so much talent out there too. This is the frustrating part for people I know these days. There's a lot of talent out there, a lot of very talented people, but they don't get there because they forget the other part of it, which is the ambition and the attitude and the way you got to move yourself
Mm.
forward. And there's lots of great music, and there's lots of great music that's been lost over the years because the people didn't put themselves behind it. It's like that old joke. That old thing about what was it, Microsoft or something. Bill Gates and Paul Allen didn't invent DOS. They bought it for $600 from some guy. I'm sure felt pretty strong that day about having a bit of money in his pocket for software, probably laughing at them. So they didn't invent it, but it's what's behind the idea that makes it successful, not the idea. So I can have as many great songs as I think they're great, but if I don't put myself behind them properly, then at the end of the day, no one's going to feel the same thing that I do.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're headed back, I believe, in the studio soon once
Yeah,
Chris.
so yeah, I go back to London next week, and then we go back in the studio. I might be going on another short tour in Switzerland and Germany for a while. Just finished a tour with the lads from. They're not.
Boys
I mean,
Live.
probably don't know too much about. Yeah, they're not so huge in America, but they were
They
big. I
are.
mean, Boyzone and Westlake was massive. Well, I mean, the crowd there was. It was great, to be honest. It was 95 to 99.5% women. Um, and those girls that were like running around screaming and yelling when they were 15 and 16 are now about 45 to 50, and there are more. Their
Uh,
screaming has intensified to a level that is unheard of. I mean, although I was the opening act, I mean, the one way to get the crowd going was just say two words, boys life, and they would go mad. I mean, I would say stuff like, the boys are coming out in a few minutes, they're just getting their speedos
and then
on, and the crowd would go,
people lose it.
yeah, but they were great, but they were very enthusiastic, and it's tough. I get it. When I come out, they don't know who I am. They don't know my music, so it's a fresh palette there, and I've got to go out and do my best to show what I've got. And I would say that to people too. I sometimes think when there's an elephant in the room, you got to say something about it. So I would say, listen, I know you guys don't know my music, but my goal at the end of the night is that you know a song or two. There was a song on the
Amen.
album called "You Need Me" that seemed to be able to be okay for the crowd because there's only three words. They caught up to it pretty fast, so I had a good thing. But the Boys Life were great. They're lovely, lovely lads too. To be honest, they're fantastic guys, and they were very supportive too. And so I think it was a good. It was a good. I only did half the tour. I did 12 dates. I think there's another 12 dates to go still. But yeah, good lads, good experience also too for me because I hadn't been touring for quite a long time, so it was a good thing to get back at it.
What would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of the beautiful music you keep putting out, Cole?
Thank you, Jamie. I would say I'll keep putting out as much as I can for as long as you can stomach it. And I hope that you like what I'm doing. And anybody that is a fan, I mean, the thing about Spotify, I know as artists, we're all pretty down on Spotify because they pay less than they pay to a church mouse with a piece of cheese. But at the end of the day, though, it's nice to go on Spotify sometimes and you see all the countries you've been played in, even if it's one play or like that. And it's kind of cool, you know. You say, this, "Oh my God, I've been played there. I got played in the Middle East. I got played in Israel. I got played there. I got played in South Africa. I got played there." And it feels kind of good. You're just wondering who the one sole person is who had the courage to press on Col Gerrard. That's all I'm asking. But yeah,
It only takes one.
I'll just keep doing my thing and I keep pedaling away. And I know eventually at one point it breaks through. As long as you know, and that's that old scenario. The only way you fail is by giving up. So you just got to keep slogging it out. And I love what I'm doing. I mean, I loved making the films, and I like doing when I ran a business and that sort of stuff. But I love music. I can't live without it.
You do have such a gift for it. So I hope
Thank you,
it
Jasmine.
keeps motivating you and keeps pushing you to do bigger and better things for the years to come.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Talking to people like you will help me out.
We're definitely good for the ego and a little bit for the soul, too.
Thank you, Donovan. I appreciate that. Excellent.